Assalamualaikum, grade 5th. Hopefully, you are fine. We were doing our first chapter, skeleton and bones. We are left only with the last topic, that is fracture. So, today we are going to read about this. Your bones are tough stuff. Tough means Tough. Tough means hard. Your bones are hard stuff, but even tough stuff can break. If the pressure is too much or too sudden, the bones may crack. A bone can break by falling from a bicycle or by sudden falling during playing. When a bone breaks, it is called a fracture. The fracture may be a hairline fracture, simple fracture, or compound fracture. So, what does this mean? This means that, as you know, all our bones are very hard. If you can touch your bones, you will come to know that all your bones are quite very hard. So, they are saying, although they are hard, but they can also break. So, in which conditions, when they will break if you are falling from the bicycle, or if you may fall from any height during the playing. So when these type of situations occur, then your bone will fracture, then your bone will break. So breaking of bone is called fracture. When a bone breaks, it is called a fracture. The fracture may be a hairline fracture, simple fracture, or compound fracture. Underline these types of fracture. There are three types of fracture: hairline fracture, and then simple fracture, and then compound fracture. So these two types, simple and compound fractures, these two types are somehow severe types of fracture, while hairline fracture is like a very common and simple fracture. For example, this is your bone. So if you feel a crack on it, so this is the simple hairline fracture. While the simple fracture is that fracture you can see from this figure. Here, if my camera can focus, then you can see simple fracture means the fracture that in which your bones are just fractured from the middle, while the compound fracture is quite very severe type of fracture. In this you can see your bones are just separated from the other bone. So you can see hairline is a simple type of fracture which cause only a single crack on the bone, while in simple fracture your bone breaks from the original bones. And you can see in compound fracture your bone will break, and then it will separate, totally separate from the remaining bone. So okay, these three types of fracture: hairline fracture, simple fracture, and compound fracture. So the next thing is signs and symptoms. Okay, signs and symptoms mean symptoms, symptoms. Symptoms means the signs, that things that how can you get that your bone is fractured. The signs and symptoms of a fracture may differ according to the bone affected. For example, if your skull bone, if your cranial bones are fractured, then this type of fracture is different from the bones that are present in your legs, or the bones that are present in your knee, etc. The patient's age and general health, as well as the severity of the injury. However, these may include some of the following. So it also vary from patients to patients, from different age to age. Okay, so what are the symptoms? Number one, pain. For example, if you fell from the bicycle, then you will feel very severe pain in the bone. So this may be the symptom or sign of the fracture. And then swelling where, for example, if you fell down, then maybe your knee will bend and your knee will sudden collapse with the floor, then you will feel swelling on the knee portion. And then bruising means the redness, the change of the color in your skin, discolored skin around the affected area. Same thing, like bruising, the part where does your the part from where your bone is fractured, so it may leads towards the bruising and discolored of the skin. And then angulation. Angulation means the abnormal bend or curve. Angulation means abnormal bend or curve. For example, if you fell from somewhere, then if your bone will bend to an abnormal way, or it may lead to an abnormal curve, then it make the angulation, which later on leads towards the fracture. The affected area may be bent at an unusual angle, okay, like abnormal angle. Patient is unable to put weight on the injured area. Exactly, if your bones are fractured, then it's not possible for you to carry any weight. Even it's in severe cases of fracture, it's not possible for us to move our bones. Patient cannot move the affected area. Affected bone or joint may have a grating sensation. Grating, grating, sensation. Grating sensation means cracking, crackling, or popping sound. What does this mean? If your bones are fractured, then you can hear a cracking voice coming from the joints or from the bones. And the last symptom is there may be bleeding in some fractures. In your severe type of fractures, like in compound fractures, your bones can bleed. Okay, so these are the symptoms and signs of the fracture. And now fill in the blanks. A human skeleton contains dash bones. So how many bones are present in the human skeleton? They are talking about the human skeleton, not about the skeleton of a child. So how many bones are present in the human skeleton? 206 bones are present in the human skeleton. The longest bone in our body is dash. This is quite very understood. As I told you, the longest bone in our body is femur bone. When a bone breaks, it is called a fracture. Today we have learned when a bone breaking of bone is called fracture. The dash protects the brain. So it's quite very simple. Brain is our internal organ. It is very vital part. So who protects the brain? The skull protects the brain. And then development of blood cells takes place in dash. So as I told you, bone marrow is the place where our blood cells takes place, where production of blood cells takes place, where in our bone marrow. So in this way you can easily solve these fill in the blanks, and these true false are for your homework. Okay, you have to find the answer and then you will match from these statements. Now I have made worksheet for you, but before doing this worksheet, before doing this quiz portion, you must have to read this chapter again. If you will read the chapter, then you can easily find the answer of these few MCQs. Our topic was skeleton and bones, as you know all. And then choose the best answer. Every question carries two possible answers. Okay, from these two answers you have to choose the only one answer. Knee and elbow are a type of number one fixed joints or hinge joints. You can find its answer from this. Okay, you can find here the hinge joints, so you can find out that where does these joints are present. And then bones contain a lot of, so which bones enriched of which thing? Calcium or cartilage. If calcium is correct, then you have to make tick mark on the calcium. If cartilage is correct, then you have to make tick mark on the cartilage. So bones contain a lot of what? Calcium or cartilage. You can find its answer from this paragraph. From the first paragraph you can find its answer. And then we have the total number of facial bones are. Okay, how many bones are present in your face area? So you have to find its answer from this table. From this table you have types of bones, you have number of bones, and you also have image. So you can find its answer from this table. And then each hand has dash bones in it. Okay, so in your hands, each hand, in your single hand, how many bones are present? So you can find its answer from this paragraph. From this paragraph you can find that how many bones are present in our single hand. Okay, then we have the longest bone in our body. Femur is a, ठीक है, as you know all, which is the longest bone in our body? Femur bone is the longest bone in our body. So where does this bone is present? In arm bone or thigh bone? In this you have to find the location of the bone. So the longest bone, which is femur bone, is present where? You have to find the position of the that bone. So you can find its answer from the skeleton, from the diagram of skeleton. When a bone breaks, it is called a fracture or cancer. Okay, so you have to tell the thing from here. You can find its answer from this paragraph, that when our bone breaks, so what we call it as fracture or cancer. Most of the fractures can be examined with the help of, yes, oh sorry, I skipped this thing. You have this, you can see on Fig 1.8, most of the fractures can be examined with the help of X-rays. Okay, if you feel these symptoms, so how can you get that you have something? So you can get to know with the help of X-rays. So luckily I told its answer. And the next is the simplest type of fracture is hairline fracture as compound fracture. As I told you, you can also find from the fracture portion that I told you which fracture are very severe in nature. But in this you have to tell about the simplest type of fracture. And then muscles, bones and joints are all coordinated by the, okay, as I told you, our all body organs are coordinated to where? Okay, this thing I was telling you since grade 4th. So you can find its answer from here, the movement portion. Okay, muscles, bones and joints are all coordinated by the respiratory system or by the nervous system. So you can find out its answer. And then we have pelvis is the, okay, again this thing, pelvis is the name, another name of what? Leg bone or hip bone. So you can find its answer from the diagram of the skeleton. The shortest bone in our body is femur or stapes. I told you this thing many times. Okay, what is the shortest bone? You can find its answer from the first page of the chapter. And then dash bones are present in our skull. So you, in this you can find its answer from page number, you can find its answer on page number 3. Okay, on page number 3 table is given, and from the table you can easily get to know that which bones are present in our skull, cranial bones or throat bones. Okay, you have 12 MCQs. You have to solve all these MCQs very carefully. First of all you have to read the chapter, then you have to solve these question on MCQs, then you can match all the answers from your textbook. Thank you.